everyone. So we're going to be talking today about when real life hits, how to keep your business going. I am coming to you live from the not sunny at all Munich, Germany. I hope wherever you are staying warm. Make sure you have some water, a cup of tea or coffee, a piece of paper, and pen or pencil, because you're going to have some good notes to take. And as always, we welcome questions. Just let us know what comes up for you. So why is this topic important? Well, clearly 2020 really opened our eyes to when real life hits the whole world. But as entrepreneurs, we're very aware that real life hits all the time. This isn't the first year where maybe we've gone through some of our own crises. But I found that living in a country in Germany in which the term burnout is actually accepted, businesses have to respond and react when one of their employees comes in saying, I'm experiencing burnout and I have a medical diagnosis of it, and the company itself helps to support you in the treatment you need. I realized, wow, this is not happening in my home country in the United States and in many other countries. Burnout is impacting so many, and I see it even in the entrepreneurial world because we often just keep going, forgetting that we are an important part of our business that needs to be cared for. And we don't have that boss to turn the slip into from the doctor that says, I'm going through burnout and I need some time off. And the business keep running because there's another team going. Very often it's us and maybe a couple other people helping things go. So this is why this topic is important, not just in 2020, but in how we run our business. It's kind of funny that when we get into the world of entrepreneurship, we do sort of picture it with an idealistic view that we will be there every step of the way. And often we are. But when real life hits, when crises occur, when even just being sick happens, and we're not bouncing back as fast as we'd hoped to, that's the time for us to have a plan in place for those moments. I had to laugh because coming from the United States, we all know the political things that are going on over there. Prior to the election, I found out that some of the largest companies in the States already had contingency plans for either outcome of the election because they knew real life was about to hit. And no matter what was going to occur, they wanted to make sure that they and their employees could continue to run business in the way that they could safely. So I think as entrepreneurs, we also need to be thinking that way. When things occur, how are we going to respond? What are we going to do to make sure that we continue to run our business in ways that do not exhaust us or burn us out, and also continue to help us to bring in the revenue we would like to the degree it can. Okay, so let's get into today's chat. So, hello 2020. As I was just saying, we're very aware of the things that have occurred. We've had a health crisis, deaths and losses are at a rise, family dynamics are changing. As a couples therapist and a licensed counselor, I see this happening very often, that people are working from home more, their kids are now having to also do school from home. And the dynamic of who does what and how is changing and shifting, adding more workload to some and not to others. Anticipatory grief. Now, what is that? Anticipatory grief is the what's next? What's going to happen tomorrow? What'll be the next thing next month? There was this great video that went viral on YouTube of me talking to myself 3 months ago about what's coming. And it was sort of showing if I could go back and tell myself it'll be okay, things are going to change, things will be different, but I promise you'll be okay. And I thought, wow, that would really probably make many of us who experience anticipatory grief feel a lot better to hear from our future self. It's okay. It's going to look strange. It's going to be scary, but it will be okay. The grief part of it is that we become frustrated, aggravated, irritable, emotional at the what's to come. Why isn't this, going back to normal quickly? What's happening? So that anticipatory grief can impact how clearly we can think, how we respond, and how we react. Then we have trauma that gets kicked back up. Whenever there is a crisis, there are people who are triggered by old trauma. And what do I mean by this? Here's a simple version. I realized very quickly that those who wear the masks that look like those from the OR, a surgery, that doctors wear in surgery, those who'd had trauma related to surgery, related to doctors, related to the medical field, were going to have that trauma get kicked back up if they had not really worked on how to deal with those triggers on a regular basis, because people were wearing masks all the time. I also thought about those countries in which when you covered up your nose and your mouth and you only showed your eyes, that it was danger, that it was a scary thing. And so then that kicks up, everybody's wearing these masks. So all that trauma gets kicked up. Why I bring this up with our business, and especially Hello 2020, is because now we're all wearing masks. We also will get to the end about those darn masks, the difficulty in breathing with them. The natural disasters that seem to keep coming, these are things that are impacting those of you who live abroad. Maybe it's your family, or maybe you live in a country that has been impacted recently, and my heart goes out to you for that. This is a time in which there is so much activity occurring on Earth and with people that it makes it really challenging. Major political issues, the UK, the US, just to name two. But honestly, I think we're seeing that with the issues with racial divisions, the issues with how children are being cared for or not in certain countries. These things are coming to the forefront. I remember thinking 2020 is going to be this year of clearer vision, just this opportunities. And I didn't think about clear vision means also seeing the truth, positive and negative, of what's going on in the world. Then we have, as I shared, the racial injustices that are occurring. And then we have those darn masks that impact how we breathe, how we interact with each other. I'm such a friendly extrovert that I love to smile at people. And this is one of those things where when you want to smile, you have to, learn how to smile with your eyes. I've gotten really good at it. But that interaction, the nonverbal communication, is so hard to make happen. And often we can't hear each other very well with these masks. So we're having to speak louder, which makes us feel like we're yelling and makes us feel aggravated. So I want you to think about all of these things that have happened in 2020 to the world in a different mindset. Okay, so when you go into a room in which people have had an argument, how do you typically feel? Sometimes we walk into those rooms and we feel it's like you could cut it with a knife, the tension. We feel the weight of the world almost, like, whoa, what did I walk into? And that's just two people, or maybe three or four, who've had an argument that you walk in and go, something doesn't feel right. Now imagine that on an even bigger level in the city or town you live in. It's not that there's been arguments, but there's been a lot of negative things that have happened, and it is impacting how people interact, how they feel. And it's almost like you can walk through the air and feel it on you. So though you may feel like, well, you know what, I'm actually handling all the things really well that are going on in the world, and I'm keeping boundaries with how much I'm reading up on it or how much I upset myself with it, you're also impacted by everyone else and how they're feeling, because that's just natural human nature. It's how we are. We respond and feel what's going on around us. So recognize that too, that real life isn't always just directly what impacts you, but what happens around you and how others are responding. Are people outraged and angry? Are they mournful and grieving? Are they lackadaisical and laughing about it and everything's fine, and yet things are getting worse? You were impacted by this. Okay, so 2020 has happened. Real life has hit, and here we are trying to figure out how to continue to run our businesses in a new way for many of us than we had before. So let me introduce myself so you have a better understanding of why I'm speaking to you today about this. My name is Rossler. I am an American, but I'm married to a German, which is why that beautiful umlaut is over the O. I'm a licensed professional counselor and grief specialist. And a lot of the work that I do is also called grief healing. So as a licensed counselor, I've worked for over 12 years helping couples, individuals, and families better understand dynamics that are happening, that are impacting their relationships, helping them to have happier, healthier lives. I've also had the privilege in the last 2 years to start speaking, working as a consultant for the Boston Consulting Group, helping their parents with work-life balance. Because again, the term burnout is very accepted here, and yet so many feel like they don't know the tools of how to get the help that is available to them. I've also spoken to MOPS International and their leadership conference about how to really tailor the work that they do towards the people that they serve, and better understanding through Facebook community leadership circles here in Munich, how to have healthier boundaries as you're running groups in order to support communities here in the city. So it's been amazing to be able to speak at these things and to also see clients on a private basis. But I need to share with you that real life has hit for me prior to 2020. In 2018, I received a call that my mom had passed away in her sleep. It wasn't something any of us in our family expected. I lived an ocean apart from my family, and it was 2:30 in the morning when I received this call. It was a shock to my system. I, had this private practice. I was starting to build my business online, providing courses, working with different companies and being a consultant, and then real life hit. And it didn't stop. That's how life often is, isn't it? I went from finding out that information on a direct flight, leaving my 2 kids here behind with their grandparents, having my husband go with me and going, I don't even know where to start, to 2019, in which more losses happened, more life challenges occurred for my family, and impacting my body, impacting my health, impacting my family and their grief process. And just thinking, how do I keep my business going? I started asking other entrepreneurs, because I wasn't the only person who'd experienced losses like this, but I said, how do you do it? I don't know how to balance my family, me, and how I'm feeling about everything, my health, my business, but I don't want to let it go of my business because it helps me actually feel a sense of normality. But I was finding myself diving into my work in such a way that wasn't normal and it wasn't healthy. So as I started asking these other entrepreneurs, what are you doing to keep your business going? During these difficult times, I got a variety of answers. It was everything from, I just dove in completely, and then a year later realized I hit rock bottom and grieved my way out of it. And others saying, you know what, I started simplifying and doing a little bit less, started thinking about things, what was really important in my business. And many actually rebranded during that time. I don't know about you and how 2020 affected you, but I know I rebranded. I changed the way that I shared my messaging. Everything's shifted. It wasn't just because of 2020. It was because of the last 2 years I've experienced. But I started seeing those who really took it seriously started to see that this was an ample time to grow and learn and not throw everything into their business. So real life hit, and I had to learn firsthand how to start to adjust so that I can still bring in an income with my business and not hurt and harm myself. Okay, so how do we keep our business moving when real life hits? Again, I'm sharing from personal experience, and I'm also going to be sharing from what I teach people. We're going to be looking at it from a psychology standpoint, as well as what's realistic. Now let's look at our first question. Okay, this is a great question. First question is, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? I'm assuming that this question is in relation to starting a business and running it in real life. The one thing I would say to my 18-year-old self, if I could go back, I would say, really enjoy this time before all the responsibility hit. Now, I was one of those kids who, starting at 15, I always had a job, whether it be one job or 2 jobs. I did not want to be, my parents were divorced. I didn't want to be reliant on just my mom. I wanted to be able to bring in my own income. I definitely type A, first child. I wanted to feel that hero complex of, look at me, look what I'm doing. So at 18, I probably would tell myself now, go enjoy being 18, relax, and stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Great question. Feel free to ask some more. So how do we keep our businesses moving when real life hits? Let's talk about one concept that I find really helps people put this in perspective. Okay, the juggling act. I want you to imagine you running your business is a juggling act. You've got different balls up in the air that you're constantly running. Okay. And so I want you to also think about, because we are entrepreneurs, it's not just our business, it's also our personal lives, our family life, all of these things. There is not much of a divide because often our work hours tend to interfere with our family hours interfere with our work hours. So we are juggling, right? Up and down, up and down. You need to identify that some of these balls are rubber. Some of them are going to keep bouncing once you drop them, and some of them are glass. Okay, so this concept of rubber versus glass is really easy to think about when we're being objective about our business. But when we are either in the very beginning of our business, of growing it, or when we are in a time of crisis, we will see all the balls as glass. I have to be the juggler of it. I need to keep these things going, because if I drop it, it will break and it cannot be repaired. So when we take a step back and go, what are the components of our business? Marketing, sales, our services, and things that we're doing, new offers coming up. And we look at our website, social media, we break all those things down even more. We can start to see what is rubber and what is glass. And when you do that, you start to say, how long, if I drop that rubber ball, because right now life is hitting hard, if I drop that rubber ball, how long will it bounce on its own? And if it can't bounce for too long, but it's still rubber, I don't have to be doing it. Is it time to outsource? Now, when we look at this analogy of rubber and glass, it is so funny how as entrepreneurs, we really can convince ourselves that everything is glass and we must touch all of it. I was recently working with a VA and I was letting go of my social media, allowing her to take care of all of that, going, okay, I'm putting it in your hands. I'm kind of detoxing myself off of the social media marketing game, and I'm allowing you to do all of this. I had believed that piece was glass for so long. And even through the crises that I experienced in 2018 and 2019, I believe I had to be the one writing it. I had to be the one taking the pictures. I had to do it. It was me. It represents me. So I have to, right? So it's this glass ball. And when I finally really looked at it, I said, this is actually rubber. I'm turning it into glass. And when I gave it over to her, she was able to turn it into something I hadn't thought about. I hadn't realized, because I was holding on to it like it was such a precious glass ball. And by doing so, I was exhausting myself. So really identify, what is rubber? What is glass? What is that in your relationships? Maybe if you do have a team, you do have to recognize communication with them is glass. You want to be able to communicate with them clearly and effectively. So having systems to do that is important. But the work that they're doing, you don't have to micromanage. That part's more rubber because they're running it. Now, they might take the ball on and it become glass for them, but it's not glass for you. Let me know if you have any questions about how to really identify what is glass and what is rubber in your business. But I like this metaphor of juggling and how we can balance those things. The next thing I would say is that we need to look at simplifying how we do things in our business. And I will say this is one of the strengths I found for a lot of entrepreneurs in 2020 is that we had a lot of time to do that. Sales for many of us went down because things weren't running the way that they used to. We had to adapt to, if we did in-person services, how to be more online. I watched so many businesses, women here in Munich, who are part of an organization I co-founded, Women Entrepreneurs of Munich, who were going in March and April, how do I move to being online? To now, here we are in November, and they're fully online in their business in creative and amazing ways. Wine tasters who mail you a box of wine to have tastings Saturday night with all your friends and try out different wines, with having the lead salesperson from that company teach you about pairings, the history of the wine, where it came from. She had to be creative in that moment. She simplified and said, what is important? I want to hit these sales goals. I need to make sure I have this financial buffer. So how can I still meet the needs of my clients, but in a situation in which we're all in lockdown? So when we go through crisis and overwhelm, this is sort of like the glass ball. We will think it's time to pile on even more. We will add more to our list and believe it's actually crucial because we don't want to face what's really going on. We don't want to feel the tension in the room. We don't want to feel what's going on inside of us. Here I am in Germany, away from the United States, but for 2 solid weeks, and I'm coming off of it this week, I felt the tension and the emotions of the American people of the election. I could, you read it on social media, you see it in the news, it was everywhere. Even in the German news, I couldn't escape it. It was so prevalent. And I wanted to just dive into my work, do more stuff, get more things done. It was just an escape. And it can become a bit addictive to try to add more to our to-do list because of the adrenaline. So let's talk about what happens in our brains, which is really funny. Why is it so hard to simplify? Do you see this little, it's like an almond shape. It's quite small in this picture, but it's about the size of an almond placed in our brain. This is called the amygdala. Now, I love to joke with people, and it's true though, that the amygdala is what caused all the people to buy all the toilet paper in the very beginning of all of this, and sometimes still causes it. That amygdala is where our fight or flight or freeze response comes from. Our reactivity. It's the caveman response of there's a threat, something's coming after us, we need to respond, right? So it's so funny because it's just a small area of our brain, but it drives us. So when a crisis occurs and we don't want to feel this, and our brain goes, I need more stuff. And I need to add this and I need to do that. And this project's really important now. And it is the amygdala driving us. It's amazing. I'm fascinated by the brain, not only as a counselor, but also just how our brains, if you watch people, how they cause us to react in certain ways. What's even funnier is at the front, like our forehead is called the prefrontal cortex. It's a large part of the brain. It finishes developing in our early 20s. And that is the area of thinking ahead, planning, recognizing what could come, and knowing how to respond. That's the side we want when it comes to how much toilet paper should we really buy for the next couple months. That's the side we want when it comes to our business. What's actually important? Okay, what's glass? What's rubber? How can I simplify? And yet this little almond shape reacts and it takes over. So we need to talk about how to get that in check so that you can be simplifying in your business and not overloading yourself. There's a piece to this I want you to remember. Some of why we do this is to avoid the feelings because we're not comfortable with them. So once we start to simplify and we create space for grief, reactivity, more rest, whatever it is that we need, you will need to make sure that you're getting the support that you need, whether that be going and talking to a counselor or a coach, a friend, getting outside in nature, going for walks, journaling more. You're going to need to fill that time, which would have been work, with self-care that actually helps you. Not binge watching something on the television or eating a whole bunch of unhealthy food. It's going to be really focusing in on healing and helping you with all of these emotions. So what can we actually do when that almond-shaped part of our brain takes over and we don't want to simplify, we're reactive? I want you to think about what are the things, again, that you can control. What are the things that in this moment I can do? It might be as simple as I can make myself a cup of tea and just sit for a second. I can do a brain dump of ideas I have for my business. It doesn't mean I need to do them right now. So really look at what you have control over. The next thing, breathe. So how do we turn off the fight or flight and freeze response? Is actually getting more oxygen to our brain. Because when fight or flight occurs, what happens? We start to react because we're ready. You see this with couples and arguing, don't you? We start to react and we're breathing shorter and we're breathing in the top part of our lungs because we're upset. We're ready to run, we're ready to fight, or we're ready to just sit there and freeze. So by taking a moment through taking a deep breath, and you can do the breathe in to the count of 5, breathe out to the count of 6. You can do meditation breathing, yoga breathing. Even all those practices when you are calm are great to remind yourself to take that deep breath. I want you to really breathe in and breathe out. When you find yourself, let's say you're doing a brain dump and you're like, oh my God, these are great ideas and da 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 da. But you know what? Like, life is happening really hard to me right now. And I don't need to do all of these right now. And your brain starts to go, well, yes, you do. You can do it. Take a deep breath. Provide your brain with the oxygen it needs. Get yourself out of fight or flight. Remind yourself it's just a time of brainstorming and ideas, and relax. Then the next thing is the hands connection. We need to connect with other people. When we are going through difficult times, it doesn't have to be a huge group. Heck, you might find that community is online for you. If you can't meet with them in person or call somebody, a good friend, maybe your friends don't understand what it is you're going through with your business and real life, but you do need to connect. We need to remember that our business isn't the whole world, and that it's okay that these things are challenging right now, but that we matter too. I'll add on here as well. I really am a huge believer in getting some form of exercise when we are going through grief and frustrations and upset. Maybe things are happening in our relationship that's impacting our business. Making sure you go for walks to think clearly. I love journaling as a way of being able to release what is on my mind, to say the things I maybe would never say to the person. So maybe you need to burn the paper afterwards. But really getting it out, because we get very stuck in this mindset that it all has to stay inside. We, go, 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 go. And by doing that, we really exhaust ourselves. So we have a comment. The shift from being the whole business to not fulfilling every task seems scary. Doesn't it? It does seem scary, but remember, that is the amygdala speaking. That is not the whole self really being able to speak. That is our fear of failure, our fear of guilt, the things that come up for us when we think about no longer being in charge of the whole business. All of it is us. I had somebody give me some great advice in the beginning of me starting my online business, and it was, you have to learn how to emotionally divorce from your products and your services. And I thought, I am a counselor. That is not how that works. But she was right. I had to learn how to recognize that if I attach myself so much to it, I actually sometimes can hold it back from growing. And it's the same when crisis and difficult times happen. If I assume that I am the only reason this business is running, then I'll probably hold it back because I'm exhausted. I need to grieve. I'm frustrated. I'm struggling to think clearly. I'm not simplifying. I'm juggling everything like it's glass. So we do have to learn how to, in a sense, emotionally, and as a therapist, that really spoke to me, emotionally divorce from what it is in our business that we give to others, so that it still means something to us. It's still important, but it isn't something that we feel like it's all me, it's all or nothing. It relieves us of that pressure. But there's a reason why many of us go into entrepreneurship, and it is to feel like we're achieving and that we are important. So it can be really challenging at times. Okay. So great comment. And I agree. It can be really scary. Just remind yourself of the truth. I think about some of the best, the top entrepreneurs in the world who failed, in the sense I'm putting quotations, because we all know it was just stepping stones, who had businesses not work, who tried something and they were able to step away, and maybe they had a hard time stepping away, but they moved on and they created something new. They detached themselves from what they had created and said, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. So I think that's important. So here's a good questions if you're trying to decide, is it time to outsource? Okay. So again, maybe you've identified one of the balls as rubber, you've simplified your processes and how you're doing things, and you say, this is something I really do need to keep going. I don't have to do it. I want you to write down, you can almost do it in these quadrants, what needs to be done in your business, all of it, glass and rubber. What needs to be done? What can be outsourced short term? So this is maybe just the couple months that you need to be able to get back on your feet, whether you're having health issues, whether you're just really impacted by what's going on in the world. Hey, I really need to outsource this for a short time. There's some great websites you can go to find short-term project helpers where you don't have to hire someone full-time. What can someone else do for me? And that goes back to, this I want you to think in a grander, like, what do I actually really I don't have to be the one doing it in my business. And then you can go back to that quadrant of what is it that's short-term and what's something I'm actually kind of excited to allow somebody to do more long-term so I can grow my business. So looking at that, and then what am I ready to keep doing myself? What is realistic? What can I actually do? So if I look back at when my mom died, and then 2019 when we had losses that impacted my health and were impacting my family, I look back and I think there were certain things with like social media I didn't need to be doing on my own. And it took me 2 years before I invested in getting some help. That was too long. I thought it was glass. But I was ready to continue doing myself a smaller amount of my one-on-one services, simplifying those to not be so often and doing what I could when I could. That actually helped me feel invigorated and positive, not in a adrenaline way, but in I'm serving my purpose. That I needed to keep doing. I couldn't outsource that. Nobody's going to do therapy for my clients or present in group programs and be their coach. People can't do that. I actually picked up some of my speaking gigs between 2018 and 2020 as hey, I'm here and I can do this. And it was a one-time thing. And it actually just helped me feel even more secure. I couldn't outsource that. I can't have somebody else speak for me. But the person who reaches out to those companies, who emails them for me, or the podcast that I've been on, that can be outsourced. That is not glass. If I get the right person, it really works out that it stays rubber. So recognize these quadrants, see what you can do. I know we're getting to the end of our chat. What I want you to take away from this in recognizing when real life hits, you're juggling, recognizing rubber and glass, you're simplifying, you're looking at how the brain is interfering with your ability to simplify and to see things clearly. I want you to remember, you are not a rubber ball. And at the very beginning, I said there's one glass ball that's the most important, and that's you. If you crash, if you burn out, if you break, in a sense, nothing else runs. There is no juggling happening. So you have to remember that you must take care of yourself. You must see yourself as just as vital and as important as all the other components of your business. Because as much as we feel like we're a part of our business and our business is part of us, it's actually about us doing something that's our dream, our desire. And if we're not in a healthy place, that dream and the desire looks really foggy and cloudy. So make sure that you are treating yourself like glass. Use self-care, real self-care. Again, not binge watching things and going on shopping sprees or eating a whole lot of stuff or just locking yourself away from people. Real self-care, meditation, going for walks, getting some exercise into your day or your week, journaling, doing things that really fill your cup up to make you feel good instead of crashing you down to exhaust you. Getting sleep instead of staying up till 2 a.m. working on your website. We've all been there. Being able to say, I matter. I need rest. I need healthy food. I need good conversations with people that matter. I need to be feeding my brain with things that help me feel positive in life and not reactive. The key is that you are glass. Treat yourself that way. So if you have any questions, I will be on for a little bit. Melanie will make sure that I get those questions, but feel free to ask questions about how to keep your business going when real life hits, how to see the rubber from the glass, how to recognize that you are glass. This is your time to ask those questions or share your comments. I've really enjoyed being able to teach you guys this because I think this is a topic that we're all aware of is important, but often we don't make them a priority. And so make sure, just like those companies in the States who are aware of whatever outcome comes from the political vote, you as well have been able to have a plan for when real life happens. Okay, so let's make sure to connect. Here's where you can find me. Here's my website. I'd love to stay connected with you. Feel free to message me on any of these platforms and let me know what you thought of the talk. If you've got questions later on, there's no problem. I'd be happy to be here to be a support for you as you go through when real life hits your business.